Welcome back to Talk Dirt to Me. You're listening to Lindsay and Elisa. We're having a discussion today with Mr. John Dodson right here on 89.9 KRBX Caldwell, Boise. How are you doing, John?
Oh, wonderful. This talk of greenhouses and crops and growing has already got me salivating for the start of the season already.
Spring can't come fast enough.
I'm with you on that. I'm definitely chomping at the bit, which is, the fun thing is seeds are coming in and we're getting to actually get that little touch of springs coming going on. And so when it comes to people actually using greenhouses at home, I like to talk about some of what are people's options, because, you can go, when I started my farm, I went all out. This was going to be a commercial farm. I bought a 24 by 60 foot, $20,000 greenhouse, and it really served my needs well. That's because I was making my living off of it. What are the kind of the bare minimum dimensions and types of materials and stuff that people should be looking at when they're looking at the types of greenhouses out there? And I think that it's kind of hard to talk about return on investment, because once you set up a greenhouse, you're going to have it for years and years and years if it's of any kind of quality. And, looking at how much you're spending versus how much you're saving is going to be hard, especially if you try to amortize it over the first year.
Right.
Well, the whole range, it really goes as far as something as rudimentary as how a lot of the green veggie crops are grown in other parts of the country, which we want to do here, which is a 2x10 pressure treated piece of lumber that acts as a frame in a box with PVC hoops that are attached to the frame, and then covered with polyethylene, ideally greenhouse poly, which is different than visqueen that you buy at one of the hardware stores. It's a different kind of polyethylene. It's nickel veneered, so it lasts a lot longer. But people can do something essentially that simple, which basically heats up the soil and keeps those temperatures moderated. Now, you can't probably go 365 days through all of the winter, but all the way from there up to very elaborate greenhouses that can be polycarbonate or glass or double insulated.
I have a question about that, because you were talking about doing the pressure treated lumber. Now, is that something that you would ever want to plant vegetables directly in the ground around? Or is that something where you're talking, I'm going to...
No, good
a raised bed situation, because from everything that I know, I don't think you're supposed to plant anything with pressure treated
wood.
Right.
It's difficult because in the old days, the penta preservatives, you never want to use railroad ties or any of these repurposed pressure treated lumbers. The problem is arsenic. They use arsenates as the preservative in a lot of these lumbers. So if you did, thank you for mentioning that, Lisa, because you got to verify that the pressure-treated material is manganese instead of the arsenics. And if you can't verify that, then you don't want to use pressure-treated.
Right. And, I was going to talk about, just touch base on the fact that there are so many different ways you could do it yourself for a greenhouse or a cold frame, using old windows or doors, using glass and plastic. But I also want to put that disclaimer in there at the same time, is if you're going to one of these lumber yards or these repurposed materials stores, you want to make sure that you're not buying something with paint on it that has lead in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you're buying some sort of pressure-treated lumber or something.
Right.
Even repurposing railroad ties, you can do that. There's a lot of cool stuff that you could do with it, but you want to make sure that the product you're using has not been treated chemically in any way. And there's ways to figure out about that looking online.
Well, it's funny, let's chalk this up to I should know better. But, I made that rookie error, even though I've been in organic gardening now for 12 years.
Right.
When my next door neighbor was getting rid of some railroad ties, I'm like, yeah, I'll take them. And we used them to line my strawberry patch, and then line my blackberry bushes. And I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. These aren't annuals. They're probably not taking up that much material. And you know what? I really am actually going to try to test it, because this year I had your company take out the railroad ties and dispose of them, and we're just letting them not be, just be borderless. But
they're free birds now.
Exactly. And I'm hoping that I'm going to have to take a soil test, because I want to see exactly how much that arsenic leached into my soil, and do I need to pull my plants and replace my soil? But I haven't quite gotten to that point yet. But chalk it up to I should have known better, and I'm learning too.
Well, I kind of went like this on my forehead when she was like, I have rheumatoid. I was like, what?
Well, and plants will grow. People need to be aware that they're not going to necessarily see any disorder in the plant material, because plants may uptake those heavy metals, and in fact they use plants nowadays to remediate soils with heavy metals. The plants actually absorb the heavy metal, then they're treated as hazardous waste and taken to hazardous waste sites. So you can't rely on the plants looking weird. The heavy metals may be there, and without a soil test you really wouldn't know.
That's funny that you mentioned that, because next week Elisa and I are actually giving a talk at the Idaho Nursery Landscape Association on plants to remediate soils. And Elisa, since she has a much stronger plant background per se, she's going to be talking about the plant aspect of things, and I'm going to be talking about addressing it from a biological standpoint, from the soil fungi, from a soil perspective. What kind of microbes can you introduce into environment to do the same kind of remediation? But yeah, it's best your best option is not to get the toxins in the soil in the first place.
Yes,
and folks, I didn't know that. I mean, I brought that up just randomly here, but
sorry, I jumped all over that one.
It's a fascinating topic, and
well,
one
I think
that
it's a very important topic, especially these days as people are trying to become more self-sustaining and recycling, and trying to bring it in, and they need to be aware and educated about, this is a good thing to do. I'm full on for that, but make sure you know what you're using and what you're doing to your own soils, because you are trying to do something that's better for your family, and it would be a horrible thing if you end up hurting yourself in the long run from it.
Right, having it backfire on you.
Well, one of the nice things I think in today's market, you can build your own greenhouse, but there's a lot of really the market is responding to the home grower, and I think that there's a lot of good options out there these days for just kits.
Little hobby greenhouses?
Yeah. I mean, I know that we carry some really good ones, and there's a lot of the different nurseries are carrying different types of hobby greenhouses.
Yeah, little pop-up greenhouses with plastic that you can just have little hoops that snap together.
Well, and what I love about the one that we were talking about earlier that's out in front of our store is that it's a serious greenhouse, but in the sense that it's not like a soft-sided greenhouse. That it's meant for durability and to stay there for a long time, but it's not so intense like you're going to find
out. You have to concrete the poles in the ground or anything like that.
Exactly.
I've heard that people have thrown rocks and hammers at it, and it's never broken that little greenhouse. So
it's a pretty cool greenhouse.
So durable, but not terribly expensive.
Right? No, not terribly expensive.
Starting at $5.99, you can get them, and then you can get them all the way up and into the thousands of dollars range, but the point is that your entry point for starting a greenhouse in your own yard for a small amount of space, just to kind of get some greens going, or even just starting your own plants or hardening them off to the environment, people can get into a greenhouse pretty easily these days.
Or even a sunroom. Now, I would almost like a sunroom better than I might like a greenhouse, and this is why. Because I could put it outside my front door. All my pretty little plants could be out there.
And you
I could go drink my coffee in the sun.
And you can heat it by opening up your front door.
Yeah.
I'm not joking.
Well, and it's just heated off of the, being on the base of your foundation and such as well. And even if you could do it on a south-facing wall, it would be murder in the summer, but it would be great right now.